Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of What's Happening. I'm George Binns, and the guest this evening is Richard T. Talbot, who is running for City Council from Beverly. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Judge. Nice to be
So I
here.
guess the question is, what's your take on the city? Where do you think the city is right now?
Right now, I think the city is in a very good financial shape. However, I think that we have some concerns coming up in the future because of the end of the COVID aid. I think that what's happening is that we're bound to have a recession soon because the economy is skyrocketing so much and housing prices are going up so much. I believe we're getting ready for an economic downturn. The question is the city ready for that downturn? So, I mean, I think that Megan Gale has done a good job with finances. I think the city budget people have done a very good job, but I think that's something that we have to be prepared for. But otherwise, I think the city is in great financial shape right now.
Well, the other question that keeps coming up is, where do you think the city is going? There's a lot of pressure on TOD and the building along Rantoul Street. The Cummings Center is going gangbusters. Cummings Properties is doing well on Dunham Road. Is this a direction you think the city should be going in? Or?
To be honest with you, I mean, I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I think there's too much congestion in the city right now, and I think a lot of the residents are really upset about it. And I think that a lot of residents are also upset about the condition of the infrastructure right now. I mean, it seems wherever you go in Beverly, there's traffic jams. Like I live on Sonning Road behind Flair's Cleaners, and just to get out in the streets is very difficult. And the city's doing a lot of projects right now to fix the streets and that sort of thing. But it seems like there's so many of them going on right now at once. It seems like it's very hard to get around. So I am concerned about the congestion in the city. I guess the question we have to ask ourselves is, do we want to come to Salem or do we remain Beverly? I mean, I personally like to see Beverly retain its character. I think that we need to concentrate more. This will be part of my speech at the end of the interview, but one of my concerns is affordable housing for our kids and also for our seniors. And no, I am very concerned about the congestion. I think it's getting to be a little too much, to be honest with you. I think a lot of residents agree with me.
Well, I guess your direction of where you would like to lead the city is different than it's going right now. So you mentioned affordable housing. That works against the condos and TOD.
Okay, well, when I say affordable housing, what I'm talking about is, I was going to tell you this later, but I'll tell you now. One of the reasons I'm running for office is my daughter Liz, who used to play with your daughter, we talked about earlier, had to move out of Beverly because she couldn't afford to live here. She couldn't afford to buy a house. So when I say affordable housing, I'm not so much referring to the affordable housing. We're already at 12%. I mean, we can always use more affordable housing, but I'm talking about more for people, middle-income people that want to stay in the city and can't afford a house. My daughter wanted to spend $500,000 for a house, say, in Beverly, and she couldn't find one. She had to move to West Lynn. So that's one of the reasons I'm running for office. I'm concerned about the way it's going for the middle class in the city right now.
Well, I guess that's one of my hot buttons too. So the way I would define it is there is a requirement for 10% quote affordable housing, and that's a well-defined number as to what that is. And then you're bringing up the issue of housing that people can afford. And I've got a running battle, I guess, with the city personally over this new Plan Beverly and how it's emphasizing more of the same, essentially. So, yeah, that's the way the city is heading. How would you do something? What would you do different to?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I've been talking to a lot of city councilors and things like that, and it's not easy to do. But I think what we have to do, I mean, one of the things that's happening in the housing market right now for the middle income people is that it's skyrocketing because of the lack of supply because of COVID. And I think that some of that will alleviate that. But I also like to see if we could get some more grants and maybe set aside more housing for middle income people when they do that developments. I mean, I'd actually like to see them not even be developments. I mean, maybe a condo type development or even single family houses. I mean, I'm not sure how we could do that, but one of the things I'm kind of a finance whiz. My experience is 30 years as a small business accounting person. And I have a lot of experience with finances. I believe if we work together, we can find a way.
Well, that's one of the challenges, and the example I keep liking to put forth and to explain to people the way it is I bought my house in Beverly 53 years ago, paid $32,000 for it. Okay. And if I go through the Consumer Price Index and $32,000 in 1967 comes out to be something just short of $250,000 in 2020 dollars. If I believe Zillow, my house is supposedly worth $900,000.
Wow.
And realistically, the way the market's going, that's probably the going price. And if my granddaughter just tried to buy a house and they had to meet the asking price and then some to get the house, because it's, like you say, it's a seller's market. But that difference between $250,000 and $900,000 is really the appreciation of the city of Beverly that, as a taxpayer here, I tend to benefit from it. But as somebody like your daughter trying to find a home around here, that is a real challenge. So the question is, how do you create something like that? And I had a discussion with Todd Rotundo a couple of sessions ago, and he and his brother own a duplex. So multifamily housing at that level, 1 to 2, maybe as many as 4 families in one building might be an option, but that means a zoning change. So are you amicable to zoning changes?
Yes, I am amicable to that. It benefits the families of Beverly. I mean, I don't want to give people the wrong impression. I'm not against affordable housing, but I do think that we need to do more for what I consider middle income people like myself. I'm actually retired, and I'm on Social Security myself. My wife's a teacher at St. Pius in Lynn, so I understand what it means to live in a limited budget. I mean, I have a house that has appreciated too, not quite as much as yours has, but still has appreciated, and it's just so expensive to live in Beverly. Also, and there's really no easy answers, but I think that we need somebody to look at fresh can look at it. And I worked for an employee-owned corporation in Everett, Massachusetts, which closed back about 7 years ago. And I was the cost accounting manager, so I have a really good knowledge of finance. And one of the things I do plan to do if I'm elected to office, I do plan to go through the budget very carefully and see where the money is going. I can't make promises because I haven't seen the budget yet. Sometimes people ask me, what specifically are you going to do? I can't really do that till I'm in office when I can see what's going on and work with the other councilors and see what's happening. But I do plan to the best of my knowledge, try to look into what can be done to do that for citizens of Beverly. I mean, that's not my only issue, but that's one of my most important issues.
Well, that gets to be the question of, where do we spend the tax dollars that we keep accumulating? And one of the things that makes Beverly expensive is every year the taxes go up to the maximum allowable by the Prop 2.5 plus new growth, and I don't know whether things they put into the budget, but the tax keep going up. And the question, I guess, a lot of people say is, are we getting our money's worth? Like we just added this CPA, which is another tax over and above the minimum. And where should we be spending our money?
Well, to be honest with you, I support CPA because actually, you probably don't notice, your viewers might notice, but I'm actually related to the original settlers of Beverly. I'm related to the Dodgers and Woodbury's. So I do, and I also do think that I think the CPA is a good idea. But that is a good question. Where do you take the money from? And one of my first goals would be to, in other words, we're in a pandemic now. And I think that we pretty much have to live within our means. I mean, we have a certain wish list the city has. And I think that we have to look carefully at that. I mean, in certain areas that I agree with, certain areas I'd probably look at it. But I mean, I have no idea. But I can't, like I said, I can't go into total specifics, unfortunately. I mean, I'm starting to look at the budget. I've never run for public office before, so the people in office do know more specifically about the budget than I do. I think we need somebody independently to look at that, who has the knowledge of an accountant, and go through that and see where savings could be made without negatively affecting the quality of life in the city.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Everybody wants to cut the taxes and save some money on the budget, but everybody else has got, oh yeah, we can save money on that, but not on my pet project. So
exactly,
it's the politics.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when you get into those kind of issues, I think the other big concern that a lot of people have is we're spending like half our budget on the school system.
Right.
If we continue to bring in more people into the city, there's no way that economically you can balance that, because the taxes on a condo or on an apartment do not equal the $12,000 to $14,000 a year it costs per student to educate them. So we run into that kind of a situation that if we bring in more people, that means more students into the system, and that runs up the taxes or runs up the cost of government. So you get into one of these quandaries of how do you balance this? Where's the balance point?
Well, that's a very good question. That's kind of an unanswerable question. I mean, I think that we do. I mean, if there is a way legally to limit the rate of growth in the city of Beverly, I would be in favor of looking into that. I mean, I'm not sure what the laws are involved. I mean, I know one thing I've been watching. I was actually at the city council meeting last night. I mean, I participated. I actually watched some of them on BevCam also, and some of the other commissions. And there really aren't any easy answers. I mean, that's why it hasn't been answered before. But when you have a problem, the first thing you do is you have to recognize there's a problem. And I think that we need more awareness within the city. I mean, in other words, a lot of people are getting financial gain in the city from the housing prices going up. I have no problem with that. It's free enterprise. But I think we also have to try to balance things. Things are a little bit out of whack now. We're going a little bit too high with the growth, not enough. We need to equal out. And eventually, if we don't equal it out, usually I find in life things equal out eventually anyway. Even if we don't do anything, we're going to run into problems.
And you get into these situations with the school system that everybody expects the city to have a very good school system. That's one of the reasons people would want to move here. And you get to the other part of the question of how much do we want to change the city? And one of the questions I love to ask, and a lot of people have a hard time understanding, is what is the character of Beverly and what part of it should be preserved?
Okay, that's a very good question. Well, I'm not sure, you probably don't know this, but I'm a long distance runner, and I've run at Beverly since I was 13 years old. So I see the city. So I think that one of the things that makes Beverly a great city is the Garden City. That's the name of the city. And I think we're losing that character through overdevelopment. And the question is, how do we limit that development without breaking any laws and without that sort of thing? So the question is, like you said before, what do we want Beverly to be? Beverly's on the edge of the suburbs. Beverly sort of is the borderline between the suburbs of Boston and the countryside. Beverly's borders Wenham, Hamilton, Manchester by the sea. And we have to keep that balance, a very delicate balance. And I mean, what I would try to do is, I'm a runner, I see the congestion. I drive in the city. I grew up in the city. I even drive a hybrid car. So, I mean, I didn't mean to, but I do. I didn't mean to buy one, but it just turned out that way. But so, I mean, I'm very big in the environment too. So, I mean, environmentally, it's not good for the city to have traffic jams all over the city with exhaust spewing out. I mean, also, I have asthma, so that makes it worse for me because I'm a runner with asthma. So I would do anything I can to preserve the character of Beverly, but also I have to do within the existing framework of laws. And that's one of the problems with being a politician, I think. I don't consider myself a politician, but I know I'm speaking like one because I'm first running for office. But what you really have to do is you have to put yourself out there. I mean, one of the advantages I have running for office is that I'm retired. I can spend a considerable amount of time in constituent services. I can research things. I'm very good at research. So, I mean, so that's basically what I do. I mean, I can't say if I'm elected, I'm going to cut development by 10% or something like that. I mean, that's a promise I can't keep. That's one of the reasons I'm avoiding giving promises. The only thing I can say that people that know me knows myself as a very honest, hardworking person, very earnest person. I served in the Army National Guard. I served our country. I support the police. Sorry, I'm going to kind of campaign speech, but I'm trying to get my time. And but I would try to do what's right for the city of Beverly, basically, in my estimation.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you're in favor of the CPA, Community Preservation Act. And do you think the money that's being collected is being spent wisely, or is there a better way to spend some of that money?
Well, I've seen some of the money, and actually, Stacey Ames actually brought up a good point. I saw her on the cam one day. Usually, I mean, I don't totally agree with what Stacey says, but she's a good person. I think everyone that runs the city is good people. But she said something about the Beverly Tennis and Golf Club, and some of the money is going towards that. And she said, how about we put the money towards the community pool there instead of putting it towards the golf course? I mean, I think that's a good point. I mean, in other words, it's a very hard balancing act, and I think there's things in the pipeline for CPA, but it should be based on merit, what benefits most residents of the city in the most economical way.
Well, you get into the golf course, and that's another issue that it's almost treated like a white elephant in Beverly, in that when the shoe shut down, the city was gifted with the Beverly Golf and Tennis. And that's a continual problem of how do we maintain that? And you get into the situation where you're trying to rent it and there's no easy access to the second floor. So it's not handicap accessible. So trying to run a business based on having weddings and receptions and similar events gets to be a challenge. So we don't get the resources, the rent from it that it would. So that gets to be an investment question of how much money does the city put in to maintaining or improving Beverly Golf and Tennis, and what's the payback? So
I think that's a good question, yeah. That's a very good question. I mean, it's something I would look into if I'm elected. Even if I'm not elected, I still look into it.
Okay. Well, it's a lot of, the issue comes down to there's a lot of features to the city of Beverly. Lynch Park and the carriage house is another one of these features. That are we getting the most out of it that we could? So again, this is something I guess with your business background and financial background is something that, would you be interested in taking that on as a challenge?
Yeah, I would take it as a challenge. I am a member of Beverly Historic Society, so I mean, I do like to see historic buildings preserved. But I mean, in the carriage house, I can understand why you're questioning it. I mean, there's certain things. I mean, I think the difference between, say, the carriage house and the Beverly Golf and Tennis Club, the two different apples in a cod. I mean, the carriage house is like really, well, I don't know if it's technically a historic building, but it seems to me to be a historic building. And I think the city will use it. I mean, I love Lynch Park. Lynch Park is a beautiful park. I go there all the time. So I do want to preserve that. Let me just add one other thing too, just about budgeting. This is just something I ran into recently personally. My dad's a World War II veteran buried at Central Cemetery in Beverly. He passed away in 1993. He served in the Battle of the Bulge and did a lot of nice things. And when he was buried in 1993, we didn't have a lot of money, so we didn't give him a big grave, but they gave him a bronze plaque saying he served in World War II. What happened, the bronze plaque sunk into the ground because it wasn't installed right by the federal government, and you couldn't see it anymore. And I called the city Veterans Department, and within a few days, they sent their people out, and they actually dug it out for me and put it up so it could be seen. They actually put supports underneath, they cleaned it off, they cleaned off the grave. So there are services that the city provides that are very valuable, and I really appreciate that. But one of the things I found out was the person that's doing it gets very little pay, and he has to try to maintain 6,000, at least 6,000 veterans graves in the city. So that's one of the things I would look into. Because I'm big on veterans, and so I said I was in the Army National Guard. I mean, so that's one of the things. They're all worthwhile things the city does. You can't take a broad broad brush on it. We have to look at them one by one, but yes, I would be willing to look into that.
Oh, a lot of different issues come up relative to city services. You mentioned the veterans officer, and Jerry Gillespie used to be the veterans representative, and he got me into the system. So I recognize that it takes somebody from the city to make some of these things happen, and it worked in my case. And you think about the issues with the health department right now with this COVID pandemic that we've been thrashing at for over a year. There's a lot of things that probably have been put aside, and we'll get to them later. How do we make sure that, I guess, all these things that we were going to do but we can't because, so all of a sudden become doable again? And like you mentioned, that the salaries are not that dramatic. Are we then raising the question of, do we really have the best people possible? Should we be paying more money?
That's a really interesting question. That's a tough one, to be honest with you. I don't know if I have an answer to that yet. But, the question is, I know, like I said, I don't want to get people upset in the city, but my wife's a parochial school teacher in Lynn, Massachusetts. And, I don't want to cause controversy, but she taught all the way through the pandemic. I'm not saying that Belleville school teachers should do that also. I understand why they don't want to be involved with that. That's just sort of a side issue. But I think that, when it used to be when you serve in public service, your salaries match the private sector. And I actually had no problem with that. But the only question I might have, which is this probably is going to upset some people, but just to be honest with you, I think we might have to look at the pension structure and that sort of thing. Because in other words, I think it's okay for public employees if they want to get paid the same, they have to have the same pension structure. I'm not saying they're taking away pension from anybody's existing that's already in the city, whether they negotiated. But I'm saying the future contracts, maybe we should start looking at that more carefully.
That raises another issue that the city is not fully funded in terms of pensions. And one of the interesting tidbits, one of the guys I know from the Y was in the VA medical system, goes out to Gloucester to get something done. And the doctor looks at him and says, "What are you coming here for? You got a better coverage from being a retired city employee than you get from being a veteran." So there is an issue of, the pensions and the medical coverage for retirees is not fully funded by the city, and lots of cities are going to have that. But we've got to the point where it's time for you to do your campaign speech. So what would you like to tell the people that they should know about voting for you?
Well, let me just talk about myself. It's really not a campaign speech, but I know it's going to seem like one. I grew up in Belleville, Massachusetts. I've been a lifelong resident. I've lived in the same house on Sonning Road basically my whole life. I was most people in the city know me as being an athlete. I ran the 2013 Boston Marathon. I'm a treasurer of Wicked Running Club. I can just list some of my memberships. Maybe that would help people realize what kind of person I am. I'm a member of the Beverly Salem Elks Club. I'm a member of the Spear Post, American Legion. I volunteer at Beverly Bootstraps. Let me see what else I say. I'm a treasurer of Wicked Running Club. I had very good grades at school. I'm a graduate of UMass. I self-funded my college education. I'm a graduate of UMass Boston. And what happened was I went to school for 2 years in Northeastern. I ran out of money. And what I did, I stopped. I took a year off. I joined the Army National Guard of Massachusetts. It's kind of funny though, I was in a finance unit because I'm a finance guy. And what happened was I came back, I went to UMass Boston, I graduated with a 3.69 grade point average, so I'm fairly intelligent. I do like working with people. I think one of the things I did run track from Belleville High School and cross country under Fred Hammond. I'm sure a lot of people remember him. And he taught me a lot. And one of the things he taught me was about public service. I mean, one of the things that I would like to see happen maybe is might sound kind of altruistic. I like to see civics taught in public schools as a requirement. Um, but basically, I'm a good person. I'm an honest person. I mean, I don't. I actually read a book. It's called "Running for Office for Dummies," and basically what it said was you don't take a stand on anything. And what I'm doing now is probably getting my foot in a little bit of hot water by some of the things I'm saying. But I mean, I think some things sometimes you have to take a stand. And that's the sort of person I'm a very principled person. You might disagree with me. You might think I'm wrong. I'm always willing to listen. I'm very open-minded. And I think that I can serve the city of Beverly very well.
Okay, well, thank you. It's a good start. And I wish you the best of luck with your campaign.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's going to be a challenge, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. And being this the early days of the latest campaign season, there'll be more shows like this. And Rich, later on when you get deeper into the campaign, I'd like to invite you back to continue the discussion and see where it's going and what you're thinking about how the city should be run. And thanks again for watching, and talk to you all later.